Welcome to Start Lines and Swag Bags. The airing of this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and is not intended to replace advice from professional medical or training staff. Thank you for listening and your support of the Flying Pig Project.
Hello and welcome to the Sunday before I go back to work after spring break. And I'm actually excited to go back because I miss my kids. I miss the routine. But, Butter's going to miss me tremendously. And I'm wondering if I can claim that as a reason to not ever have to go back to work. Anyway, welcome to Start Lines and Swag Bags for this week. And I'm going to say something funny and then I'm going to tell you about the episode. So the thing that's funny is, of course, I go through the transcripts after I record, and then I send a copy to Marty, and I'm like, please cut these areas. And there was a pretty big, 5 or 10 minutes that had to be cut out of this episode. And when I told him there was a big cut, he was like, oh, is that a suggestion? Okay. I'm really hoping he cut it. What happened was I'm in the middle of recording and Butter got up on my bed and out of camera started biting me, but that was okay. But then because he was biting me, both of my legs completely cramped up. And there's a good chunk of time in the middle that I keep trying to restart the interview. And then you can just tell by the look on my face, I'm rolling around in pain. And I'm really hoping he cut that out. Anyway, so this week, I had on someone who is a Team Sugar Run coach. She runs with DWR Racing. It is Katherine Wustenfeld. I'm so sorry if I didn't get that last name perfect. It's not easy. Now, I've known Katherine for a while because I've seen her name all over the place. But when I talked about with Marie and Ryan about kind of being a little intimidated to ask somebody, she was the person. And, as you go through the podcast, as you listen to it, you find out how much we actually have in common about our beliefs, about how we look at runners and what do we do when we have to step back from running and what's our place and how are we still part of the group and the community and what as a community can we do to help each other even though we are not or I am not necessarily directly participating in. And she didn't know. She was kind of surprised that I said that I was intimidated to ask her because the intimidation factor has started to be reduced the more people that I am reaching out to, because we realize at the end of the day that, our running community is fantastic. It's a great place to be. And there are so many different pieces of the puzzle that are necessary for our communities to be successful. And just because you are not one part right now, you're a different piece of the puzzle and it all gets formed together. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but I think that's a really good, analogy. When you can't run or you can't participate or for whatever reason, you're blocked from, not blocked, but, not being part of what is going on, it's because you feel sometimes you don't fit and you just have to realize maybe you fit in a different way. Anyway, I'm not re-recording this, so it is what it is. I hope that all made sense to you. I hope you love this episode. I did. I loved listening to it the second time. So there you go. As always, thank you for supporting the Flying Pig Project and embrace the crazy to unlock a world of possibilities. Thank you. All right, so please welcome Katherine to the show. Hello.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. please introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Katherine Westenfeld. I am a running coach. I am a personal trainer. I'm a runner myself, which and I think is why you wanted me on the show. It's the running ties. But apart from running, um, I'm married. I have a rescue dog and a rescue cat who are my little children, and we love them very much. And yeah, just happy to be here.
So I ask everybody this question. I have no idea what you're going to say because it's how do you know me?
Yeah, from the running community. Yeah, I know our paths have crossed through different groups. So you're part of Fast Track. Saw you photography or doing some photography at the cross country meet in November. And yeah, I feel like our paths have crossed never like totally directly, but a lot of people that we each know each other. And so we kind of indirectly know each other.
And the interesting thing is, by having these people in common, it's like the community gets a little smaller. But I have a confession for you. I do. Now, the last episode I did, toward the end, I talked about how I reached out to someone who I was a little intimidated to interview. And that was you.
Oh no. Why was that?
But it boils down to the theme that we've been talking with on the show. It's not, you're not intimidating as a person, right? You're intimidating because some of us, the way we view ourselves as runners, like if I approach you, what are we going to talk about? And the more people I talk to, you begin to learn that we all put our shoes on one at a time, that we all have fuel issues, we all have health issues, we all have injury issues, and we have more things in common than just how fast we go. And I think that's where the intimidation lessened enough that I was like, hey, come and be on my podcast.
Oh, I'm glad you did. I'm sorry if I ever made you feel that way. Then never want that to be the case. But I totally understand it. I think no matter what level we're at, we all feel that way. Like I feel the same way about some of my teammates who are, elite. And I'm sure they feel that way about when they're lining up next to like actual pros and they're sub elite. So I think unless you're the top, I feel like we probably all feel that in some way. But like you said, there's so much more that we have in common than we don't. So
And that bringing up that's a really good point. Everybody's always looking up to somebody else, and I think we forget that. Because even though I'm looking at you or the people in the corral in front of me, they're looking at the people in the corral in front of them, and it keeps going and going. And at the end of the day, we all still have the same things that affect us and all of that. All right. So let's start at the beginning. Why running?
yeah, that's a good question. I started running sort of in middle school. I was on the track team in middle school, but at the time I wanted nothing to do with distance running and only would do the sprints, which if you know me now is hilarious because it takes me a good like 200 meters to actually get going. So not a good fit. But anyway, I didn't do anything over like the 400 in middle school and was playing soccer throughout that time. First couple of years of high school playing soccer, I was on a travel team and realized that I really just liked the running part of soccer more than the soccer sport itself. Part of that was the activity. I could see myself progressing a little bit faster in like the actual running than the soccer skills. And then the teammates too. And you know this, like runners are some of the nicest people. And being on a part of the cross country and track team in high school, the girls were just so nice. And it was a stark difference from my high school soccer team where people were just out for positions. And so they were very competitive and didn't want to work necessarily together. which is interesting since track and cross countries can be a very individual sport. It actually felt more team-like.
Yeah.
So that's where I started.
So, okay, let's talk about the fact that you coach first. Now, I love that because you coach for Team Sugar Runs, and I worked with Deborah of Team Sugar Runs for about a year. And I think when I stopped working with her, Deborah, I'll be honest, I know you did this. You probably were like, "Phew, good grief," because I can't be coached. Some people cannot be coached. But
Yeah.
why did you decide to go the coaching route?
Yeah. So that was back in 2018, and I had worked with Jessica, who owns Team Sugar Runs, and I was working my corporate job at the time, and people started seeing throughout my years of training, like just kind of like my trajectory, and started asking me like, "Hey, would you write me a training plan?" Like, or just asking for help. And I realized that it was something that could potentially turn into a business. And was able to get certified, and just really wanted to help people like to be able to see that progress themselves. I just knew from my own experience, like coaches changed my life. Like in high school, I wouldn't be where I am with this sport today without amazing coaches. And to be able to be that for someone who maybe didn't have that experience before, like I work with all adults, so anyone over 18. And a lot of the people I work with, like they may have been high school athletes in a different sport, but some of them have never had a coach before. And so to be able to like be that person to help them along in that journey, to help see success, whatever success means to them, is really special. And so yeah, that's a little bit more about like why I got into it, just to be able to help people.
And the only reason that I'm kind of like grinning is because, like I said, you have to be willing to be coached. Now, in my professional life, I've had a lot of different. I'm a special education teacher now, but I've been in a lot of positions where I have had to train people all the way from the high schoolers on up to you know um, full grown adults, and I always loved to do that. There's an old joke: if you can't do, teach. Well, that was me, and I loved being able to help other people achieve their goals. But then what happened was when it was flipped on me, I had a very hard time believing that somebody else knew more
Mm.
than I did. And I think when you give yourself over to a coach, if you already have in your mind that even though they've been doing this for years and they've helped all these athletes and the progress that they've made with their clients, you still have the attitude of, yeah, that can't be me. The coaching's never going to work for you.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, no, that's a good point. It definitely, like when I do an initial consultation call with anyone who's interested in coaching, and that is one of the things that comes up when I'm asking these questions. Is I'm trying to figure out like, are you coachable? Like, are you willing to receive feedback? And then I ask them, how do you like to receive feedback? Because everyone's so different in how they respond. Like, do you need that positive affirmation? Do you need to be kicked in the butt? Like, what do you like? Because we're all so different. So yeah, just finding out if someone is coachable, and then laying out my expectations too for this is a partnership. Like I very much view coaching as a partnership. So yes, I know my stuff, but you know your body best. And so being able to work with someone, listening to what their feedback is about their training, what's going on in their life, like that's one of the cool things about coaching is you learn so much more about this human than just the running. And that's at least the approach I take is I like to know what's going on if people are willing to share, because it does affect so much of our training. And so just being willing to partner in that way. And I think that helps my athletes be more comfortable realizing they do have some of the power there. It's not all in my hands. But we have to be willing to work together on that.
And my takeaway from that is one of the things that from the last episode, especially that I started introducing was, you need to surround yourself with people who not just support the physical. It's like you can see what your athletes are doing, but a lot of times you need to learn your athlete. Especially like when we're talking about feedback. That's a huge one. Depending on how they view themselves, how maybe they're used to being told, they're not good enough, or, whatever their background is, whatever lens they're looking through it. As a coach, the more you know about that, the more you can support them in that way.
Mm-hmm.
The mental aspect of it, if that's not there, or in my case, you don't know more than I do, even though you did, is just as important, if not more, than the physical.
Totally. Yeah. No, I agree. And there's a lot that this is just a piece of our lives, and there's a lot more that goes on outside of this. But at the same time too, I know I'm not going to be the perfect coach for everyone, and that's why there's so many of us out there. And so if we don't mesh quite well, then I'm happy to give a recommendation of, what, this person might be a better fit for you based on your personality and what you're telling me you want. And I'm not, at this point in my career, I'm not afraid to admit that. I think when I first started off, I used to think that I had to work with everyone and I had to make sure that everyone liked me. And I want people to like me, but now it's, what, we have to understand that we're not going to be everyone's cup of tea all the time.
Oh
So,
my, I am in love with the way you said that. Because when we talk about, why wouldn't I walk up to you 2 years ago somewhere? It's because in the end, we have a lot to talk about, but it doesn't appear that way, and, when you talk about some people need one type of coach and some people need another, 100%. There are a lot of people I know that really are motivated by perhaps a more aggressive tactic.
yeah.
No, and that's not me. Um, okay.
No, I'm the same way. I need someone to tell me that I'm doing well, or tell me I'm not haven't done something right. But I I've always told people I'm not the one that if you need the super tough love, that's not my style. I'm sorry, I will not yell at you ever. I will never tell you that you're worthless or you're wasting my time or anything like that. And then I think that must stem from past mentorship or coaching experiences people have where they expect that from you, that you're going to be really disappointed in them. Um, and maybe some coaches are like that, but yeah, not my style. So again, different coach for everybody, but I approve. I more support the uh, I don't know how to describe it, more affirmative and supportive, loving kind of. I don't know if that's the right word. Some tough love, but I'm not going to be yelling at you.
Tell me I'm fast. Tell me I'm pretty. But I'm the type of athlete that if and when, and I say when because I may or may not, in talking to Sabrina, use the word maybe, a marathon. But I'm the type of athlete that any coach should be like, okay, here's the disclaimer form. If in the end, if you don't get this done, it's not my fault. I'm giving you best laid plans. Because even when I, would work at the running store, people would ask me all sorts of, advice questions, whether it's fueling or mileage or how many times a week or what shoe or whatever. And you can give people information, but that there's no guarantee that information is correct for that person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a challenge sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to learn to adapt to each person, and what their needs are. That's definitely one of the biggest challenges, is that not every athlete is alike. And you might have some that there's groupings of like people that, need certain things and want certain things, and you kind of learn those and how they communicate best. And just understand that there are going to be different needs and ways that I have to show up differently for them.
I love that. And now, but you've turned running coach. You've taken the next step.
Yeah, yeah, I really got it pretty deep into strength training. Back in 2019, I kept getting these really stupid injuries, like just little niggles, that were the result every time I'd go to like PT or the chiropractor. It'd be your hips and glutes are weak. And instead of strengthening my hips and glutes, I'd get fixed, pay all this money, and then go back to doing what I was doing. And, lo and behold, a few months later, I'm back in the office getting more therapy done. And eventually I was like, you know what? Enough is enough. I've spent enough money on this and taking time off. So I started strength training, and wow, didn't get hurt anymore. Like, well, imagine that. And so I ended up getting certified by the NASM as a certified personal trainer, to make sure I knew, I knew the basics of lifting, but I wanted to understand why we do things and how movement patterns work with the body so that I could help write programs for other runners. So I specialize like within strength for runners is really where I like to focus that strength piece.
So I'm first of all, I'm laughing because I feel like anytime you're talking to another runner and we talk about, I love the word niggles, by the way. We talk about these little things that get us. First of all, the words hip and knee always come out, and we're always weak in those areas.
Mm-hmm.
That's what ultimately pulled me out of marathon training in 2018. And I mean, to this day, it's interesting. I did like maybe 6 months, 8 months during 2020 of like, I dove straight into strength training because there was nothing else to do. And my running improved dramatically. So, there is definitely some truth to how important strength training is, not only to prevent injury, but to quicken recovery after the effort.
Yeah, absolutely. And I work with a lot of women now who are, entering into their 40s and those like perimenopause and eventually, menopause, postmenopause years. And the number one thing you can do is strength training to keep the bones strong and, just making sure that you're not getting those injuries in the future. Cause that's one of the things that often happens to us women as we age, is more brittle bones. And yeah, it's definitely a lifelong thing for women and men, but, just speaking from a woman experience. I tell a lot of my athletes, like, if you only have time for one thing today, I'd rather you get your lift in and skip your miles if that's what it comes down to. Obviously, we don't wanna get in the habit of skipping the running all the time, but, like, if you're stretched for time this week, let's make sure we get that in because usually as soon as that starts to slip, the little niggles start to pop up again, like in a few more weeks. And yeah, we don't want that. So it's become a hot topic in running lately, like the strength training. So it's a good time to be in the industry.
And strength training is a very big hot topic. And not just strength training in general, but what modifications we would make strength training while in a heavy training cycle, like for a marathon. What's the balance between the two?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I definitely work with my athletes through that. And usually what we say is, when you're in your peak marathon training, you go more into maintenance mode with strength. We're not trying to push those PRs in the gym. We're just trying to kind of maintain that strength that you built. And when you're in the off season, it's a great time to, try to deadlift your heaviest and work on that strength piece. But when you're in season, just trying to maintain strength and eventually you cut back on the number of days you're doing, the time you're doing. And it definitely, there is no perfect formula to it, but there is like a method to making sure you're doing enough, but not like too much that it starts to impact your running.
But again, it's mine is different than yours. There is no one. I think part of the challenge when I'm asked questions specifically to that, when people want to know, strength training versus running versus what should I do this, no, not only is there a science behind it, like you really should, as you say, stay in maintenance while you're doing a heavy training cycle and use the off season to improve. There also is still the element of that may not work for you. Or
Totally.
what does that look like for you? And that's where I think coaches really see. The interesting thing is, there I think I could be coached. Not the running portion. I could be coached when it comes to weights, but just saying.
You say that now.
You know what? See, I have to be very careful on this podcast because there have been a couple things that have come back at me already. Just when I think nobody listens, all of a sudden I get this little message that says, "Oh, hey." Okay. For you personally, what's your favorite distance?
Yeah, I think the half marathon actually, like, a few years ago, I probably would have told you the marathon, but I love the process of training for the marathon. I wouldn't say I've fallen in love with running the marathon, but I really love racing half marathon.
Which is okay? What's your favorite half marathon?
um, so my PR is at the Indy Monumental half, so I feel a little bit biased towards that one, because it went so well. It was just like the perfect race day. It wasn't perfect weather, but the race just played out perfectly. And if anyone who's been to Indy knows, like, the logistics are so easy getting there from Chicago. You can line up like 15 minutes before you need to start, and it's yeah. I recommend that race to all my athletes, half or full.
I I so I get a certain. I mean, I've done a handful of two handfuls of half marathons. One failed marathon and 100 other little things along the way. And I love it when somebody mentions something like that race, which is of course not local. And here I am. Oh yeah, I've been there. So I went with a friend who was trying to PR the marathon, and I did the 5K because why not? But we were at a hotel where you crossed the finish line, you got out of the chute there, and we were like a block from the hotel.
Yeah. You can't beat it because you get such a big field and a competitive field, like, if that's what you're looking for, and like you said, you just walk back to your hotel, and like with a major marathon, you're having to get there hours in advance and sit around in the cold.
And you can't beat it. And
Yeah.
see, it's funny because you say that, and now you have me thinking. Because are you doing the shuffle this weekend? I know you haven't been running as much. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I am planning to. I'm picking up my packet tomorrow, and assuming my body feels good, I will be doing that on Sunday in some capacity. We'll see what that looks like.
so we're going to go back to something we were talking about earlier because I am very curious. I enjoyed talking and working with Deborah a lot, even though I don't think I ever followed anything she told me to do, which is 100% on me. I mean, I am not shifting blame, you know, on me.
Mhm.
But there is a part of me that wonders if maybe a non-local, a remote coach was not ideal in my case.
Mhm.
Do you do athletes that are just local, or do you also do remote?
Yeah, it's a big mix. So I mean, everything is technically like virtual in that, like, I give them all their plans online. Like, you were familiar with Final Surge, and do phone calls, but my local athletes, I do make the effort to get out to races and try to meet them and, go for runs sometimes with them when our schedules align too. So it's a big mix. I have people in like Germany and different Australia, things like that too. So but I agree. Sometimes the virtual thing doesn't necessarily work for someone, depending on what they need.
See, it's interesting because from what you said earlier, like a coach's perspective, you're, especially with your experience, you're talking to someone and determining if you would be a good fit for them. But you
Hmm.
don't know if you're talking with someone who's giving you the answers you want, hoping they'll be a good fit for you. And I think that's what happened with me. I think it
Yeah.
was the initial excitement.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to go do this. And then with her being as far away as she was, there was no accountability.
Mm, okay. So yeah, you're just motivated in a different way. Um,
Exactly. And,
yeah.
because we're going to do some more episodes in the future about some coaches bringing on their athletes, and discussing how important that relationship is. Now, we know, unfortunately, that not everybody has necessarily means or access to have a coach,
Hmm.
but when we talk about people in that situation, we then stress how important our own running communities are in being able to support, when you're looking for some guidance. There's a couple groups I know that have expanded. One in particular started out with like 4 people, and now they're up to, I think, 24 people. They did their first marathon together. They're on to their second marathon, and they have this huge bank of experience to draw from, and then figure out again what works best for them.
Hmm. Yeah.
You should never be afraid. Doesn't matter who it is. You should never be afraid to ask someone you see, does this work for you? Why not? And all that, and gather that information and then make the determination if it's best for you.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think the relationship piece of coaching is so important too, especially like in a world now where like AI is kind of taking over and you don't need to have money necessarily to have a coach anymore because you can ask your friend ChatGPT to write a training plan for you. So, I think that that's something that, I try to focus on is you can't have that relationship with ChatGPT that you can with me. And so I encourage the, back and forth communication with people and some people don't like that. Like they prefer to, I'm an email type person. Like that's how I want to communicate with you. And others want to actually get on the phone and talk with you. And that's fine. But I think that is like something that coaches are going to have to start getting creative with is how do we compete against this new free software thing that's out there. And it's got to be you want the relationship.
You can pull up ChatGPT and ask them anything, and you probably
Mhm.
could write me a training plan.
Yeah. Yeah. As long as you know the right questions to ask, it's kind of scary, like how close it can get to what you need. So I would say, from an accessibility thing, I am glad that those things are out there for people who might not be able to afford coaching. And I think that that's great that it's like able to scrape information at the same time it's stealing it, so that kind of stinks. Um but I'm not totally against it. Just because like you said, like not everyone has access to those groups. Like if you live in a real rural area, you might not have a running club that you can lean on people for but I do think it's great that there's so many local running communities to be involved with. And I've gotten involved, obviously, in my own local running community. And it's made a huge difference just having that network and people that you can talk to, not necessarily even just getting coaching advice, but just getting running advice. So, yeah, definitely opened a world of community for me, especially during like COVID times when we're all isolated, being able to then have that group and know everyone is out there still training and have that camaraderie.
I think especially where the coaching and the group comes in is one really key piece you don't get from, we're laughing about, you can do a chat GPT plan. You can download thousands of plans. I have a book by Runner's World that I actually love. It's Run Less, Run Faster. I've recommended that book to a lot of people. Here's what they don't tell you in the book. If something is bothering you, your hip, your knee, something, don't just push through, not tell anybody, and think you know best. I mean, that's one of my, people ask me, because I've been in running, even I use air quotes, running, for a long time. And I do make a good teacher because I can tell you what you should and should not do, even though I may not have the ability to do it myself, nor at this point the desire. But the amount of people who would come to me and say, this is really bothering me, and I have a 12-mile training run in 2 days. Don't run. And they don't understand that a training plan is a plan. It's not. It's fluid. It can change.
I agree. I think that's my favorite thing I've ever heard of is like a good like a great training plan is one that's written in pencil because it can be adapted and that's where coaches come in and are able to help with that. I do it all the time. I mean, this last few weeks, I can't even count the number of people who've been sick with cold, flu, COVID, just that time of year. And you can't run when you're having a 103 fever and you need to stay in bed. And things plans can pivot and goals can change and sometimes they don't have to, but having someone there to reassure you that rest is okay and we can make these changes to still hopefully get you to your goal, but your body's going to be better served right now if you rest either from like illness or injury. Come up with cross training if it is an injury. Like how do we creatively get you to that start line still while using like a different method than what's typical. So the coaches definitely come into play with something like that, and it's not something you can get out of a book or a website training plan.
No, because if you come back to me, you're like, oh my God, I had, bronchitis or whatever, and I still did my 10-mile run. I'm not impressed by you.
No.
Okay.
No. Yeah.
I'm more impressed if you're able to show the self-discipline to sit down.
I agree. Yeah. There's definitely I feel like two types of athletes. There's the ones who are going to push through it all, and there's the ones that and there's ones in the middle, but there's like the extremes where they're going to push through it all, and the other extreme is they're not going to do it. And both are equally hard to to manage, but it's especially the stubborn runner who is sick and will refuse to rest, and instead of maybe it's a week-long illness, it turns into 2-3 weeks because their body's just so depleted.
Here's the thing. I do a disclaimer, but listen, this part you should really listen to. I joke on every episode that don't necessarily do what I say because, again, no motivation to do it myself. But this is honest to goodness, real advice, everybody. Listen to your body. It will tell you if it's good or not.
Yeah.
And don't let somebody else's opinion of you choosing to sit out or choosing to run around. Don't let their opinion affect what you do, what's best for you.
Yeah, that's been a big thing for me. With going through some health stuff, just having to really be in tune with how I'm feeling on a day-to-day basis, and knowing okay, today is not a workout day. Like you need to take it easy. Like your resting heart rate's high today. Like probably a rest day. And that's, as a very type A achiever, that's been hard to rewire that side of my brain, but from a coaching, then you get the coaching, the angel devil on the shoulders there saying, the angel's going, you know what? No, you gotta listen here. Like that's the only way you're gonna get better is if you listen, and otherwise you're just gonna keep extending this recovery process longer if you keep taxing yourself.
That's
Yeah.
true. What I like to say is the speed of your marathon, how many marathons you've done, how many times you work out, all of these other elements don't point to and don't indicate your maturity as a runner.
Mm-hmm.
Your ability to stop in a marathon because it will do more damage to finish it than to start is your maturity as a runner.
Mm-hmm.
Your ability to take a week off, your ability to step back and realize that it may not happen this time. That's the mark of being mature as a runner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's so much to that. Yeah, being able to like recognize the signs that your body needs to stop, and then just making those smart decisions for the long term. Like that's a big thing I push with my athletes is like no one race is worth more than your health or your relationships, whatever it is. Like there will always be another race, but there won't be though if you push yourself over the edge and don't come back from that. So, yeah, it's never worth, you know, hurting your body over one event. As much as it in the moment, it might seem like that's the most important thing in the world, and I empathize with that. I get it. But when
Mhm.
you are a few weeks removed from that situation, a lot of times you're grateful that you didn't keep going. Because you're able to get yourself back to a healthier place, whatever that means. Yeah.
And just because you did get through it, again, doesn't impress me. I'm not impressed that now are going
Right.
to be on the couch for 3 months because,
Right.
yeah. Um, the interesting thing is for me, I ran for, well, I guess you could say 11 years. And then I had the incident with the bike where I fell in my own driveway
Oh.
uh, and busted my foot. And I have done a couple things since then. Nothing would indicate I'm coming back to running. Um, and here's the thing, I'm totally good with that. And it's not because I'm sitting back and being like, no, I'm lazy, I don't want to go running anymore. No, because I think maybe that I'm going to move on to something else. I love cheering
Mm.
for everybody. Um, I'm at certain events as the photographer. I'm in different roles. I have a podcast where I'm bringing people on so that other people understand we're all the same.
Mm.
You know, we talk a lot about like the definition of a runner and how it looks different to everybody, but at the end of the day, there's running, there's nutrition, there's shoes, there's this, there's that. And we all have those in common, regardless of what our speed or distance end goal is.
Mhm.
Running to me is a very inclusive sport.
Yeah.
And I know people who will argue that fact. But for the most part, every piece of equipment you need, you can get. There's races for everyone. Everyone. You know,
Mhm.
you want to do a family turkey trot where the 8 of you are, in the back sharing a bottle of Malort while you're going, have at it. There's a race for that. It's called the
Yeah.
Lincolnwood Turkey Trot. Um, you know, you there's something for everybody. And
Totally.
it's just getting it in your own head that just because you have a different goal or ability and all that doesn't make us different.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing I love most about this sport too, is just it can show up for you in different phases of your life. And it can be what you need it to be in different phases. Like you said right now, coming back from an injury, like maybe you're not in that chasing PR mode and running is something a little bit different right now. It's like you're still a huge part of the community and that's like the role it's playing right now for you. And I think, similarly when athletes are injured, they can sometimes feel so alienated from their running community because they don't realize that there's so much more that you can do, like go out and volunteer at a race. There's still so much we can be involved in if this it just looks different, and that's hard. It's hard if your paces and things like that change too, with depending on that season of life. And that's what I'm in right now too, is the rebuilding and understanding that that's not everything. And just the joy of being able to lace up your shoes is really the most important. And that's at the end of the day, that's what we're going to have. Hopefully when we're a lot older. And yeah, I love the sport so much, and I love all the people that I've met through it that I wouldn't have met without running. Just because we had all different walks of life, different ages, like different backgrounds, like, and it's opened my eyes to so many different people and experiences for sure.
And I'm going to piggyback on that by saying, the podcast, when it started, I mean, not going to lie, I knew some runners, and so I brought them all on the show. But, it's expanding now, to race directors. It's expanding to someone like you who, again, I've seen around for multiple years, and I've enjoyed talking to you because we're on the same wavelength when it comes to what's going on up here.
Yeah.
And to me, that is 100 times more important than how much faster you are than me, even in the rebuilding phase.
No. It's all relative.
But exactly, you know what? And that's exactly understanding my place within the whole community has helped me learn where I fit. And I think I fit more than I ever did. And I'm not
Oh,
even running.
that's amazing. That's really, and then I hope that people hear that and understand that that's like a lived experience that can be yours too if you're sidelined from the sport right now by choice or not by choice.
Just enjoy, enjoy everything else about it. Because, if you think about it, you're running for, let's say, a 5K. Okay. We'll say 25 minutes, just, it's a nice number. There's all that time before and after. Enjoy that as well. Because, I don't necessarily remember the race, but I sure remember what we did after. I sure remember the road trip to Indiana. I, as a spectator, sure remember watching my friend PR the marathon, and those memories, that's why I do this. So if you, well, you can because you're a coach. If you could stick with, like, there's one piece of advice, a single piece, the most important piece that you think, what would it be?
Of running.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think just to like find joy in the journey. It's been a big theme in my life lately with running, as well as, helping my athletes see that is if you can find joy in the day-to-day process and really love the work that you're doing, whether that be on the roads, in the gym, in your personal life, like realigning priorities, like just finding that joy goes so far, and it means so much more than any result that ever comes. Those are special, but those are, the 1% of days that we have, and the 99% is spent in this journey. So just really think about why you're doing this, why it's important to you, and remember why you started. I think we can get so disconnected from that and get so laser focused on things like time and place, and um, or even measuring what that level of success is to someone else. And just, yeah, just love the journey and love the process.
I love that answer. And I'm gonna add one small modifier, because when we talk about remembering your why, and we talk about the running community, we're not necessarily saying remember your why of why you started running. It's like, why did you join the community? because you were looking for people of like mind. You were looking for being a part of something. And when you can't be a part in it the way, you're not running or whatever, you're still a piece of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't forget that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Your community is there for you, and you got to be there for other people when they're going through their hard times too, and good times. But yeah, this community is one of a kind, and there's so many ways to get involved in it. So many different groups, depending on what you're looking for. There's the social aspect, there's the speed aspect. There's so many different ways to get involved, and free ways too. Like so many groups in the Chicago area, if you're here and elsewhere, running's become so popular that it's, I've heard a lot of flack lately about running's just become too popular, and I think it's great because everyone's just trying to live a healthier, happier life, and we need that these days.
Well,
So find your community.
it's cheaper than the therapist bills.
So I will say those are important. That's important too if you can't afford it, but it's definitely a good outlet.
Oh my goodness, that's like the perfect way to end. Thank you so much for coming on. Please don't be
Yeah.
surprised if as we expand this coaching path I'm on, that we bring you back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd be happy to chat with you again. Thanks again for having me and asking me on. Hopefully, I'm not too intimidating next time.
No, next time I see you, no, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna give you a big hug.
Aw.
That's it, folks. All right. Everybody out there, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Flying Pig Project, Start Lines and Swag Bags. I hope that you do take some things away from this episode. I know I do. This is another one that has me thinking. Remember, as we say, embrace the crazy to unlock a world of possibilities, because you just never know what's going to happen. Bye, everybody.